Now, the thing that will keep us from changing more than anything else is this one belief, that beliefs create our reality.
Have you ever felt connected to someone across distance, as if you knew what they were thinking, or sensed their emotions without a word spoken? What if that wasn't just intuition? What if it was proof of something deeper, something science is only beginning to confirm, and mystics have spoken of for centuries? The invisible threads that tie everything together. At the edge of science and spirit lies a mystery so powerful it shakes the very idea of separation. Quantum entanglement, a phrase that sounds complex, maybe even too technical, but its meaning is simple at the core. It tells us that everything, yes, everything, is already connected. Not by wires, not by space, not even by time, but by something unseen, something alive beneath what we call reality. This isn't just theory. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. He didn't like it. It broke the rules he thought held everything together. And yet, it has been proven again and again. Two particles can become so deeply linked that no matter how far apart they are, what happens to one instantly affects the other. Instantly, no delay, no signal, no explanation that fits neatly into logic. But this idea is not new. Long before quantum physics was born, the ancient Vedas spoke of a unified field of consciousness. In those sacred texts, everything is seen as one vast awareness expressing itself through different forms. Buddhism, too, has always taught that the idea of separation is illusion, what it calls Maya. And in the mystical branches of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the idea of divine unity is central. As above, so below. As within, so without. So if quantum entanglement is real on the smallest levels of particles, what happens when you apply it to yourself? What if your thoughts are not just private events bouncing around inside your head, but ripples that move through this unified field, influencing everything? What if your emotions, your intentions, your presence could shape the web around you? The key to unlocking this lies not in learning something new, but in remembering something ancient, something you were born with, but forgot along the way. When you were a child, you may have sensed it. The world felt alive. People's emotions washed over you like waves. Time felt soft and bendable. You spoke to the sky and believed it heard you. This wasn't fantasy. It was awareness before conditioning. Before you were told to disconnect. Before you were taught to see yourself as just a single body, walking through a cold, indifferent world. To crack the code of quantum entanglement, you have to return to that original sensitivity, but with the power of awareness that comes from maturity. You have to learn how to feel the threads again, not through the eyes, not through thinking, but through presence. Presence is not passive. It is a deep listening to the now. When you are fully present, when the mind grows quiet, something amazing happens. You begin to notice connections that were always there, but hidden beneath the noise. Synchronicities start to appear. Words come before thoughts. The universe seems to respond faster, more directly. This is not magic. It is the natural response of a field that has been waiting for your signal. Entanglement does not ask you to force reality. It asks you to become aware of how your internal state affects everything outside of you. Have you ever walked into a room and changed the energy without saying a word? That's entanglement. Have you ever held a thought about someone and had them call you moments later? That's entanglement. Have you ever felt that time slowed down, stretched out, or collapsed completely in a moment of emotion? That too is entanglement. You are already doing it. The difference is, now you're learning to do it on purpose. There's a story from ancient China about a sage who was asked how he could know what was happening in faraway lands without ever traveling there. He answered, "The wind passes through the trees. and I listen." He wasn't speaking of weather. He meant the subtle field of energy that connects all things. When you are quiet enough, it speaks to you. In modern language, the field is everywhere. Your body is a node. Your heart is a transmitter. Your mind is an antenna. You are never outside of it. You are it. This is only the beginning. But understanding this one truth changes everything. You were never separate. Not from people, not from events, not even from the reality you think is fixed and unmovable. Once you begin to feel that truth, not just understand it with words, but experience it in your body, reality starts to move differently. Doors open, ideas land without effort. People show up, timing aligns, and struggle softens. Not because you learned a new trick, but because you stepped into alignment with something much larger than yourself. And yet, that something is also you. What if reality wasn't a hard surface you knock on, but a web you can feel if you learn to become quiet enough? The subtle art of connection. Quantum entanglement tells us that two particles once linked remain connected no matter how far apart they travel. What this suggests is not just a scientific curiosity, it invites a completely different view of ourselves. The idea that we could be intimately connected to people, events, or even ideas across space and time seems fantastical until you start to feel it. But how do you feel what cannot be seen? The first step is to stop relying only on the senses you've been taught to trust. Sight, sound, touch. These are powerful tools, but they are tuned mostly to the physical layer. The entangled threads we speak of exist deeper, woven into the fabric of reality itself, beneath the noise. And that's where silence comes in. Most people think silence is the absence of something, but spiritually and even in neuroscience, silence is a space of possibility. It's where new signals emerge. In fact, brain studies have shown that silence activates the brain's default mode network, regions linked to self-awareness, memory, and imagination. This inner space is not empty, it's where alignment begins. To perceive quantum entanglement emotionally or spiritually, you must slow down your internal signal. This is why practices like deep meditation, prayer, or intentional solitude have always been present in mystical traditions. The monks, sages, and shamans of ancient cultures weren't withdrawing from the world, they were tuning into a deeper one. This is where you begin to feel the difference between imagination and true connection. Imagination is a wonderful creative force, but it tends to be loud, active, and personal. It follows your will. True connection, by contrast, is received. It feels like stillness brushing across your thoughts, or a quiet knowing that didn't come from you. You don't invent it, it arrives. This distinction is not always easy. Many people mistake their desires or fears for intuitive guidance. But there's a simple test. Imagination is often urgent, while true connection is quiet but persistent. It doesn't demand attention, it invites it. The philosopher Plotinus once said, "Withdraw into yourself and look. And if you do not find yourself beautiful yet, act as does the creator of a statue that is to be made beautiful. He cuts away here, he smooths there." He wasn't speaking only of moral character. He was pointing toward the inner refinement needed to sense something more subtle. The same applies here. You must clear the inner noise, smooth the surface of your awareness, and become still enough to feel what was always there. Sometimes this shows up as synchronicity, a word popularized by Carl Jung. A thought you have is echoed by a stranger's words. A dream points you towards someone you've not yet met. A book falls off the shelf and answers a question you've barely formed. These moments are often brushed off as coincidences, but many philosophers, mystics, and even some physicists would challenge that. David Bohm, a quantum physicist known for his philosophical take on physics, spoke of an implicate order, a hidden framework in which everything is connected beneath the surface. What we call separate things, he said, are actually expressions of a deeper unity, folded into each other. Entanglement, then, might be less about particles and more about patterns of meaning. Feeling those patterns requires quiet attention, not frantic searching. And here is where many people make the mistake of trying to force connection. They overthink, they grasp, they try to pull insight or signs out of the universe like demanding customers. But the entangled nature of reality does not respond well to force. It reflects your state of being, not your desperation. The moment you soften your grip, connection flows. So how do you begin? Start by allowing yourself to trust silence. Instead of filling space with noise or distraction, let yourself linger in stillness. When a feeling arises in that stillness, don't rush to label it. Just stay with it. Whether it's warmth in your chest or a strange mental image, give it space. Over time, you begin to notice patterns, like threads tightening between your moments of awareness and what shows up later in your life. Keep a journal, not for overanalyzing, but for noticing. Write down dreams, strange coincidences, or persistent thoughts. Often the threads of entanglement form a tapestry only visible in hindsight. But once you begin to see it, you can't unsee it. It becomes clear that something deep within you was always listening, always part of the signal. Tuning into the quantum field. Have you ever noticed how certain people seem to glide through life with uncanny alignment? Events fall into place. Answers come just when they're needed. It's easy to chalk this up to luck, but there's something far more intricate at play. We are not just witnesses to the unfolding of events. We are also contributors, generators of signals that ripple through space and time. In quantum terms, everything that exists is energy vibrating at a certain frequency. Intention, then, isn't simply a mental wish. It's a frequency you broadcast. The clearer and more consistent that frequency, the more precise your resonance with the hidden architecture of life. But here's the subtle truth. Most intentions never reach this level of clarity. That's because they're laced with doubt, fear, or contradiction. You may think you want peace, yet your body is tense. You might ask for love, yet keep your heart guarded. In this quantum matrix, alignment matters more than effort. You don't receive what you say you want. You receive what you are being. This is why intention is less about asking and more about aligning. There is a story from ancient Zen teaching that illustrates this beautifully. A student asked the master how long it would take to reach enlightenment. The master replied, 10 years. The student pressed further, what if I try really hard? The master smiled. Then 20 years. The lesson was simple. Pushing outwardly with tension or impatience only disorganizes your internal state, and a disorganized signal has no resonance. In practical terms, this means learning to become the tone of what you seek. Want clarity? Practice stillness and refinement of thought. Want joy? Let go of resentment and invite lightness, not through force, but through embodied choice. When you begin to live in the emotional and mental tone of what you desire, you become a clear transmitter. The field listens not to your demands, but to your vibration. And yet, most people mistake control for intention. They believe they must micromanage every outcome, every step. But control is rooted in fear. Intention is rooted in knowing. The difference between the two is not subtle in the quantum field. Control sends a fractured signal, as if you don't trust what you've asked for. Intention, when grounded in presence, speaks with confidence and calm. To move through the field effectively, one must become like water, fluid, responsive, but with an unshakable direction. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching said, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest." This is how intention operates, not as pressure, but as persistence, not as noise, but as clarity. Once your intention is set, you don't have to do much. You tune and then you listen. This is the part many overlook. The quantum field isn't a vending machine, it's a mirror. It reflects your signal, not your words. So the next step after intention is observation. Watch what shows up. Patterns, people, symbols, emotions. Don't chase, observe. The path will emerge, often through subtle invitations you might miss if you're too busy trying. One of the paradoxes here is that the less attached you are to the form of what you want, the faster it comes. That's because rigid expectations narrow your signal. The universe deals in essence, not packaging. If you say you want abundance, but expect it to look like a lottery win, you may miss the doorway opening through a conversation, an idea, or a small opportunity that snowballs. The field delivers in infinite forms. Your role is to hold the essence and stay open. This is the real art of co-creation. It's not about controlling life, it's about dancing with it. Each step you take from a centered, intentional place sends a pulse into the field. When done in alignment, that pulse returns to you, magnified. That's not just spiritual metaphor. Some interpretations of quantum physics support this, noting that observation and expectation play a role in shaping outcomes. What you consistently expect, you begin to collapse into form. But again, expectation only works when it's not brittle. This is where humility becomes part of intention. You do not impose your will. You tune into the greater rhythm. Your desire is the melody, but the field is the orchestra. You must learn to listen, adjust, and stay in flow. Becoming the tuning fork, holding a coherent signal. How long can you hold a single thought without it breaking apart into a dozen others? Most people can't last more than a few seconds before the mind wanders, worries, or rewrites the script. In the quantum field, this lack of coherence isn't just a mental hiccup, it's a lost signal. Imagine trying to play a symphony while constantly switching instruments and rhythms. The result is noise, not music. This is the silent reason why so many spiritual practices emphasize stillness, repetition, breath. These aren't superstitions, they're methods of stabilizing your internal frequency long enough for resonance to take root. Without stability, no message you send into the quantum fabric stays intact long enough to reflect back as change. But here's where the path gets real. Coherence isn't just about focus. It's also about emotional clarity. You can repeat affirmations all day, but if your nervous system is carrying old tension, conflicting beliefs, or suppressed grief, then you are sending mixed vibrations. It's like trying to speak clearly with a cracked voice. The field doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to the harmony of your inner state. So, how do you become the tuning fork that shapes your world? First, learn the art of energetic hygiene, not in the mystical sense, but in the deeply practical one. This means being aware of the emotional signals you absorb, the environments you place yourself in, and the stories you keep replaying in your head. Every unexamined habit is a loop, and every loop sends out a frequency that either sustains you or scatters you. One simple shift with a profound effect is stillness. Not silence, but stillness of inner resistance. When you stop fighting everything, your past, your fears, your uncertainty, your signal becomes more pure. Resistance is static in your broadcast. Stillness clears it. In this space, presence becomes magnetic. There's an old tale in Sufi mysticism of a seeker who chased God across deserts, through cities, into silence. He fasted, meditated, did every ritual. Finally, exhausted, he fell into stillness, and there, in the quiet, the divine spoke. The story isn't about giving up, it's about yielding, not to passivity, but to the deeper pulse of life already trying to find you. This is what coherence does. It makes you easier to find, not just for people and opportunities, but for patterns and paths that match the frequency of who you've become. Many assume that they have to work hard to manifest or attract, but hard work without harmony creates friction. That doesn't mean avoid effort. It means ensure that your effort flows from alignment. Think of it like rowing with the current rather than against it. The energy is cleaner, the direction is clearer. Part of holding a steady field also means releasing the need for immediate results. Impatience fractures the frequency. That doesn't mean becoming passive, it means becoming steady. Still, unmoved by delay, unshaken by appearances. There is something about consistency, quiet, unwavering consistency, that bends reality, not through force, but through persistence of presence, not through willpower, but through sustained awareness. Now, the world will test your signal. That's part of the process. Chaos doesn't mean you're failing. It often means you're shifting. When you start broadcasting a new pattern, the old structures around you will respond, sometimes with resistance. This is not a sign to stop. It's a sign that your signal is being received. The key in those moments is to remain unshaken. Anchor yourself not in results, but in resonance. There's a powerful teaching in Stoic philosophy that captures this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you stop looking for evidence and start living from alignment, the outer world catches up. Not always instantly, but reliably. Another crucial element here is embodiment. Thinking about a frequency isn't the same as living it. Reading about peace is not peace. Speaking about love is not love. The universe tunes into what you embody, not what you pretend. This is why rituals, movement, breathwork, sound, these physical acts matter. They're not extra. They are ways of making intangible frequencies feel real in the body. When your breath matches your thoughts, and your posture reflects calm, and your choices align with your values, your signal becomes whole. The field recognizes wholeness. It doesn't respond to masks. It responds to truth. Recognizing the field's response, decoding the ripples. If you've ever tossed a stone into a still pond, you know how far the ripples travel. Now imagine your thoughts, emotions, and choices as stones cast into the vast field of reality. But unlike water, the quantum field doesn't just reflect back a surface disturbance, it reshapes itself entirely based on your internal movement. The challenge is no longer about casting the stone, it's about noticing the ripples when they return. Most people overlook the first signs. They expect grand shifts, loud confirmations, sudden bursts of clarity. But the field speaks in subtleties. A conversation you weren't supposed to hear, but did. A person you randomly meet who answers a question you've held privately. A delay that keeps you from disaster, or a dream that carries more weight than waking life. These are the field's whispers, its way of acknowledging that your signal has been noticed and is being returned. But what do you do with these responses? How do you read what the field is trying to say? The first step is presence without interpretation. That means observing without labeling. Don't rush to assign meaning too quickly. Instead, let patterns emerge organically. This isn't passive, it's attunement. You're giving space for deeper currents to become visible. Just as a sculptor chips away to reveal the shape already hiding within the stone, you must let the message reveal itself, rather than project your assumptions onto it. This is where patience becomes its own form of perception. True awareness sharpens through repetition of quiet attention. The field is in constant conversation with you, But if your inner world is cluttered with noise, urgency, or scattered focus, you won't hear it. Think of it like a symphony playing just beneath the surface of silence. It doesn't compete for volume. It invites your stillness. Now, the ripples that return aren't always comfortable. Often they expose the misalignments you didn't realize you were carrying. That's not punishment. It's precision. The field brings you opportunities to tune even finer. A difficult interaction may show you a hidden fear. A missed opportunity might reveal that what you sought was rooted in ego rather than essence. This feedback isn't rejection, it's refinement. Just as a compass doesn't curse you for going the wrong way, but gently redirects you north, the field continually nudges you toward deeper coherence. And the more honest you are with yourself in those moments, the more quickly you adjust and realign. A powerful tool here is tracking synchronicities, not obsessively, but with curiosity. These aren't coincidences in the casual sense. They are nodes of recognition, reminders that you are crossing paths with invisible threads you've unknowingly woven. When you begin seeing patterns, numbers, symbols, recurring images, names, or themes, you are touching the framework of entanglement that underpins your journey. Carl Jung called this phenomenon meaningful coincidence, and while science may still debate its origins, lived experience affirms its power. When these alignments increase, it's often a sign that your internal frequency is reaching resonance with a larger design. You're not forcing reality, you're syncing with it. That said, discernment is essential. Not everything unusual is significant. This is where inner stillness returns, not to quiet you, but to deepen your perception. A clear heart recognizes what is guidance and what is distraction. Don't let spiritual ego hijack the conversation. You're not decoding the universe to feel special. You're listening to become precise. One of the clearest indicators that your signal is being received is a subtle shift in the quality of your experience. People start responding to you differently. The air around your decisions feels lighter. Struggle gives way to flow, not because the world becomes easier, but because your relationship to it becomes smoother. Friction fades when you're aligned. It's here that you realize the field doesn't always give you what you want, but it always mirrors what will help you grow. This is often mistaken for denial, but it's not. It's calibration. You might ask for expansion and then find yourself in isolation, not as punishment, but because solitude refines your vision. You might ask for love and face heartbreak, not as failure, but to clear space for authenticity. The question isn't, why did this happen, but what is this response showing me? This shift in inquiry turns chaos into curriculum. You no longer interpret outcomes as verdicts. You see them as dialogues. That's when you start truly partnering with the field, not as a beggar, not as a manipulator, but as a conscious co-weaver. Your awareness becomes the lens through which the ripples take form. This is why being awake, deeply, consistently awake, is the foundation for reality creation. You are not casting wishes into a void. You are speaking with a system that recognizes you the moment you recognize yourself. Reality as a living mirror, making movement matter. If you've ever walked past a mirror without realizing it, then caught your reflection out of the corner of your eye, you know the jolt of recognition it can bring. Reality works in much the same way. It's not something happening to you, it's something reflecting from you. The world, as you experience it, is constantly echoing your internal world, sometimes clearly, other times in code. What few people understand is that once you've tuned into the quantum field, it starts watching how you move. Not just your thoughts, but your energy, your integrity, your contradictions. It studies what you do in silence when no one is around. That's where alignment is measured, not in performance, but in truth. Each step you take, each choice you make, is a signal. It's either reinforcing a frequency or breaking it. The field is sensitive to this. And the more aware you become of the feedback loop, the more powerful your impact becomes, not because you force results, but because you move in harmony. So how do you move in a way that matches what you say you desire? It begins with subtle congruence. That means saying yes only when you mean yes, and saying no without apology when it's needed. Every time you betray your inner truth for comfort or approval, the mirror blurs. But when your inner compass and outer direction line up, the field sharpens its reflection. This doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It's not about rigid discipline. It's about honest movement. The more sincerely you live what you know, the more fluidly life begins to respond. You don't have to be flawless. You just have to be real. The ancients spoke of this in symbols. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, effortless action. It's not laziness or passivity. It's alignment so deep that movement flows naturally from it. You don't push the river, you swim with it. You don't chase signs, you become the one who generates them. One of the most overlooked aspects of this process is physical embodiment. Your body is not just a vehicle, it's a tuning fork. The way you sit, walk, breathe, eat, all of it shapes your signal. A mind full of clarity and a body full of neglect sends mixed messages to the field. But when the body becomes an instrument of intention, your movements carry resonance. This is why grounding rituals, simple stretches, breathwork, walks without distraction, aren't just wellness habits. They're acts of energetic alignment. They help your frequency hold its shape when life becomes chaotic. You're not using them to escape discomfort. You're using them to remain whole inside it. Movement also includes your relationships. Every person you interact with is a thread in your field. Some threads lift you, some tangle you. If you're repeatedly drawn to drama, control, or depletion, those threads need reweaving. The field listens to how you allow yourself to be treated. Boundaries aren't walls, they're tuning devices. They tell the quantum web what level of respect you are anchored in. And when you begin to walk away from patterns that once held you hostage, not in anger, but in clarity, you'll notice the field making space for new alignments. The timing of this can feel uncanny, as if reality had been waiting for your movement before opening the next path. This is the moment where trust deepens. You no longer need to see the entire road to take the next step. You understand that motion itself generates guidance. You begin walking not because you're certain, but because you're willing. That willingness, clean and quiet, is the most magnetic force in the field. Action aligned with deeper intent has a way of bending time. You'll begin to notice things showing up faster or falling away faster. That's not a coincidence. The field accelerates for those who stop hesitating out of fear. It slows for those who second-guess every shift. It's not punishing. It's simply adjusting to your signal. Now, understand this. Alignment doesn't mean comfort. Sometimes the next right step leads directly into the unknown. But the more you act from integrity, the more you'll find stability within the uncertainty. That inner steadiness is the true foundation. You realize it's not about controlling the waves. It's about becoming the kind of person who knows how to move with them. In quantum terms, this is coherence. Your mind, body, and spirit moving as one. When you reach that level of integrity, the external world bends to accommodate it. People respond differently. Events arrange themselves with uncanny timing. Ideas seem to land fully formed. This is what it means to live as a signal, not just a seeker. Living as the signal, when reality rearranges itself around you. There comes a point where you stop chasing signs and start becoming one. Reality no longer feels random. You begin to sense that everything is subtly responding to you, not to your thoughts alone, but to your presence. This is the moment your internal shift becomes a gravitational force. What once felt like coincidence now appears clearly as calibration. When you've been aligning your choices, your movement, and your silence with deeper intent, reality doesn't just meet you, it rearranges for you. But here's the key. This isn't about wishful thinking. It's not fantasy. It's resonance. The outer world adjusts to match the truth you embody within. True transformation begins to happen quietly. You'll notice people who no longer speak the same energetic language start to drift away, while new people arrive with uncanny alignment to your path. Resources, ideas, and even timing begin to move with an elegance that bypasses logic. This is what ancient mystics called living in harmony with the inner way. Not forcing life, but flowing from a deeper current within it. To live as the signal means you are no longer outsourcing your direction to what's happening outside of you. The news, other people's fears, even past memories, they no longer dictate your vibration. You become the tuning fork, not the echo. This is when your reality stabilizes. It becomes less about changing things and more about holding frequency, consistently and quietly. Many spiritual teachings point to this moment of inner clarity. The Bhagavad Gita speaks of the yogi who acts without attachment to outcomes. The Tao Te Ching reminds us that those who follow the way become the way. And in the words of Rumi, what you seek is seeking you. When your seeking ends, receiving begins. This doesn't mean you avoid difficulty. It means you approach difficulty with a deeper kind of vision. You begin to interpret resistance not as punishment, but as refinement. You ask, what is this shaping me into? Instead of reacting from old wounds, you respond from clarity. And that response subtly shifts the pattern. When you live this way, something curious happens. People begin to notice your energy before they notice your words. Rooms feel different when you enter, not because of ego or appearance, but because coherence is rare, and coherence is magnetic. You become a reminder to others of what's possible when inner truth is lived fully. Your peace disturbs those still hiding from their own. Your presence uplifts those ready to remember. You don't try to be a teacher, you simply exist as proof. As this way of living becomes steady, your sense of time begins to shift. You're no longer in a rush. The anxious drive to get there fades, because you realize that here holds the code too. You stop postponing joy. You become deeply attentive to now, not out of obligation, but because now becomes alive. You begin to notice synchronicities stacking, not because you force them, but because you've become rhythmically attuned to the field. Numbers align, thoughts manifest in conversation, old memories resurface at the perfect time to be released. These moments aren't magic tricks, they're responses. Living as the signal also means you take full authorship of your path. Victimhood no longer fits. Blame becomes too heavy. You recognize that everything, even the parts you didn't choose, can serve your unfolding. You make peace with what has been and become a steward of what's next. This is the real shift. It's not in what you achieve, but in how you show up, cleanly, quietly, unapologetically. It's in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the way you hold the door open for someone who may never say thank you, in the integrity of your yes and the boundary of your no. When you live this way long enough, you begin to notice something incredible. Life listens. The path opens not because you shout, but because your footsteps speak for you. You become one of those rare beings who doesn't just believe in energy, but is energy. We are alignment. We are the ripple, the echo, the root, and the quantum field responds not with fanfare, but with deep congruence. You think it and it moves. You feel it and it flows. You let go and it forms. So now the final doorway opens, not to knowledge, but to embodiment. And it's not a moment to celebrate, it's a moment to live. The code is cracked not in complexity, but in clarity. Reality becomes yours when you finally stop reaching and start radiating. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.